Boom. And we are back on the Make It Mastermind podcast. This week, we've got a guest, as always. We've got Emma Hyndman. Emma's got a really interesting story. How do we get to know Emma, actually? How did we meet Emma? Was it through Rob?
Yeah, through Rob Latty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Emma, you've got a really diverse background. You're a dancer.
Yeah.
You've worked as a PT.
Yeah.
You've done posing. You're a posing pro coach.
Yes.
And you're also working with a charity also.
Yes.
Well, you've got your own charity.
Yes.
So we've got a lot to unpack there today.
There's a lot. There's a lot to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you want to start?
Just kick us off then. So how did you get into dancing? I guess that's where we'll start. I guess that's
yeah.
where your career started.
Yeah, for sure. So I have always danced since I was like 3 years old. My mum was like, this girl's got too much energy. She needs to go and do something. I'm going to put her into dance class. So it was always been a hobby of mine. As I got a little bit older, I got more serious about it and just really decided that, okay, I want to have a career in dance. Half the family thought I was crazy, got to go to uni, get a real job, get a degree. Luckily, my parents were super supportive, always knew that, you know, I had potential to be a professional or successful dancer. So did that, went to dance school, came down to Leeds and studied at the Northern School of Contemporary Dance. So really focused on contemporary. And then once I graduated from there, kind of thought, had a little bit of enough of this. Where can I go? What do I do? What can I do? And I was flicking through a dance magazine in my final few months of the Northern School. And I came across this advert and it said, hip hop dance school in New York, and I was like, that's where I need to go. So went over to New York, stayed there for 3 months and trained with a hip hop dance company, and did all of my training in that style of dancing. So was always diverse when it came to dance. Came back to the UK and went to kick off my dance career and jumped out of a window and broke my foot. Long story, had to get to rehearsals, was locked in and just thought, I just need to get there. How am I going to get there? Jumped out of my friend's window and just broke my foot when I got to the bottom. So off the back of that, I kind of knew, okay, I'm not invincible. Need to have some sort of background. And as I got further through my dance career, started to get a little bit more into fitness. Was teaching dance classes, which then kind of crossed over into dance fitness classes. And then got to around about the age of 25, 26 and started to get into personal training. Did my personal training qualification, worked around some really inspiring personal trainers that also competed. So when I got to about the age of 27, got to a little bit of a crossroads and thought, okay, I can kind of go all in on fitness and kind of start a new path down that route, because obviously as a dancer you can't dance forever. You either go on to open a dance school and do that, and I just wasn't ready for that level of progression or commitment really. So got into personal training and did that full time, really started to build a business on that as well. And then the next natural progression once I stopped dancing was to do a bodybuilding show. Two of my good friends that I worked with helped me with that. I knew nothing about it, came from a dancer's background. To me, it was just another outlet to be on stage, to perform. Obviously, as a dancer, love being on stage, love being in the limelight, the spotlight. So I always naturally work towards that and wanted to go in that direction. So competed, did my first show, totally out of my depth, hadn't even watched a show, didn't really know all that much about it, but completely fell in love with it and was just like a sponge in that first show. Went on to compete competed in total for 6 years. For the first 3 years, didn't win a show. First show, didn't win, didn't even place, but I didn't care. Like, I knew it was something that I was going to have to commit to. And I've always had the mindset, probably because I was a dancer and you have to be resilient, you have to get knockbacks and come back, be better. So it was something that was always ingrained in me. So continue to work really hard to just eventually win a show. And then off the back of that, went on to win several shows, British titles, UK titles, world titles. and then eventually got my pro card with the IFBB, which is the creme de la creme of bodybuilding. It's the highest you can go. There's nothing bigger and better than it. Got my pro card in 2018 with that. And then alongside the bodybuilding, started to migrate over into posing coaching, which was a little bit random. Again, didn't really know anything too much about it. I just had started to build a bit of a reputation from competing, doing posing routines. Obviously, I could dance, so that means I could kind of piece together some poses and some and a routine. So started to get a bit of recognition for that. So then I naturally started to pick up clients that wanted help, female bodybuilders that wanted to just dance a little bit more in their routines, but still wanted that posing element of it. And I just started to gain more knowledge. I started to look at it more as a craft and just really got into it. I had the eye for it. I had the dance background. I then also had the skill of the bodybuilding, so I knew what the judges were looking for. And that just naturally grew as well, really organically. Again, got to another crossroads when I was about 30 years old. And it was a case of, okay, go all in on posing coaching, which was, I was fully booked with PT and I was fully booked with posing coaching as well. And I just knew, I sat down with Rob Latty because we worked together quite a lot over the course of those 3 years running up to that. And I said, this is definitely a direction that I want to go in. And clearly it's something there's a niche there in the market for it. It's popular. And got my own studio, opened a studio, branded the business as the Posing Pro, and just worked really, really hard. Went back into a prep for a show. I knew that would elevate the business. Invested in a website, sat up and did emails till like 1, 2 in the morning, replying to people and just building heaps of momentum around the brand. And now to present day, full-time posing coaching, established myself as, one of the best or the best in the UK. And I'm purely just off recognition, referrals, and just working with as many people as possible. And of course, marketing and branding is something that also I really enjoy. So I just put everything into that as well. So kind of brings us to present day-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
do you know what?
did
like
a good
quick
job of it.
That's probably like the best intro.
That's the best intro we've ever had. I'm not gonna lie, it's very, very detailed.
Yeah.
I was trying to think back to what you were saying at first, but I kind of wanted to ask you. So if I look at dancing,
Yes.
I'm like, oh, dancing's cool. It's great to watch. I can't fucking dance, so I have even more of
I'm
an
sure
appreciation.
there's a two-step in there
No,
somewhere.
trust me, I'm not built for it. That's another conversation. But what I wanted to ask you is, like, what did you actually learn from dancing, apart from the aspect of dancing itself? Like, what did you actually learn from those years?
Personal skills, being resilient, never take a no for an answer. If you want something, you've got to go and get it. As a dancer, you get knocked back a lot, and you've got to be prepared for that. And a lot of people, they're not built for that. I was always talented, but I also, in hindsight now, I probably gave about 75%. Had I have given 100%, who knows what direction I would have gone in. And it wasn't really until I started to compete, especially when I was going for my pro card. No, before that actually, that I realised, I've kind of spent a little bit of my life just not always giving 100% because I've always had the skill to not have to do that. But what did I learn? Definitely be resilient. If you want something, you've got to work hard for it. And just never take no for an answer as well. In regards to skills transferring into posing, it would definitely be attention to detail, to be disciplined, which obviously transfers over into bodybuilding. And also I've always been accountable to myself, because as a dancer, it's up to you to, when you finish your training, it's up to you to go to a class every day. It's up to you to train your technique every day. No one's there pointing the finger going, you've got to get up and you've got to do this. So I've always been motivated on that front as well.
One thing I wanted to ask you as well is, excuse me. So I can imagine in a dancer's world, there's probably a lot of ego in there. There's a lot of personalities to deal with, and you come across as a very confident person. So is that something, a trait that you've always had, or is that something you've had to build?
I think over the years I have probably got better with confidence as I've got older and become more self-assured and understood myself, what makes me tick, life experience. So I've always been confident, but probably now I'm fully confident and comfortable in myself. Obviously, as a dancer, you're always critiquing yourself, and even that applies to bodybuilding as well. So I've always been self-critical. I've always thought, oh, could I have done better there? So yeah, I think I've always had confidence, but probably in the past 6 years, it's where I've really probably come into my own, and probably more mindset as well. You know, I think now there's a lot more out there to cultivate your mindset and how to be strong-minded, and you know, you're understanding your personal needs and what matters to you. So I think that plays a huge part in it as well, because I just really understand what makes me tick.
Yeah, do you know, that's a good point, especially regarding like self-reflection.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, you probably walk a bit of a tightrope, especially around bodybuilding, just because of stuff that's in the news, like, or say body dysmorphia or whatever. So it's like, oh, you want to be reflecting on how you're doing, but you obviously you don't want to be damaging your mental health, basically.
Yeah. I think I've always been pretty lucky with that. You know, I've never had any body issues, even as a dancer. Like, and I think I'm just lucky because genetically, I'm naturally like small framed anyway. So, I've never been not confident in that area. You know, so but there is a lot of bodybuilders, dancers that are, because you are looking at yourself all day, every day in a mirror, pulling yourself apart. And it's really easy to do that with the wrong approach. But again, I just think I'm quite strong-minded.
No, it's good. You're obviously super fortunate, because it's a trait that it's come up on the podcast so much, is that anyone that's really progressing, doing well, they've got people around them that will keep them in check. But really, ultimately, it's the individual themselves that have to do that.
Yeah. I think probably more than anything, my downfalls in regards to that would probably be not confidence, but self-belief. I've had many conversations where I've sat down with Rob and I've gone, do you know what, this season I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see what happens. And this other girl, and she's really great. I don't think I can beat her. And I think it's that where I probably needed to work on that a little bit more. And Rob really opened up my eyes to it, and he made me understand the power of how you talk to yourself and what you say. It's like, I didn't realize when I was saying that to myself that I was almost saying to myself, it doesn't matter if you don't do well, because you know you're not expecting it anyway, or you're expecting that other person to beat you already, and you don't even know how you're going to look standing next to each other on stage. So I just really learned as well how to control my thoughts in that sense. But do you know what? There probably has been many moments over the years when I was younger where I have probably lacked confidence and self-belief and things like that. But I think now, because I'm older, I've got more life experience and knowledge, I don't really have those hang-ups so much.
Yeah. Is that advice you'd give to your younger self? And is that like, with maturity will come that kind of like, not that you don't give a fuck, but you give less of a shit about certain things that would bother you?
Yeah, I think probably more than anything, it was probably, you know, like when social media first started, and I'd probably be scared to talk on a video because I don't like the way, I don't know, like I don't feel pretty in that video, or I don't like how my body looks in that picture. Whereas now I'm far more confident in myself, where I'll go, do you know what, if I don't look great on that video, I don't really give a fuck. Do you know, you got to have, and I just think if people don't like what they see, then they don't like me. It is what it is, and they're not meant to be in my circle or a part of my energy.
Yeah.
So
no, that makes a lot of sense. So you talk about bodybuilding, so going from dancing to bodybuilding just seems like the maddest switch ever. And then obviously like female bodybuilding is obviously not as common. Well, from the outside looking in, correct me if I'm wrong, as male bodybuilding. So why did you get into it? How did you get into it? Can you give us like the real gritty details?
Yeah, so for me, dancing and bodybuilding crosses over a lot because it's very much so about how the body looks aesthetically. As a dancer, we make lines, angles, we manipulate the body or contort the body to make it suit a certain style of dancing. In bodybuilding, you build your frame to fit a certain criteria. So to me, it was almost like, especially now with posing, it's almost like I have several different styles of bodybuilding that I have to know. Several different styles of dancing that I have to be versatile with. So to me, I see them as something very similar because it is about how the physique looks, and that's really what dance is. It's about the art form, and posing and bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is an art form. You're creating a real life sculpture.
Yeah.
You know, in regards to male and female. When I first started, it was definitely male dominant. It still is male dominant, but it's probably more now. I'd probably say like a 60-40 split.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, compared to what it was. I might be wrong, but I'd probably say it's more around that. It's far more accessible now because we've got a lot of different categories. There's not just male bodybuilding, female bodybuilding, and that's it. There's levels and progression to not every girls still don't want to look like that it's called train figure or women's physique. A lot of females still don't want to progress to that, but they want to maybe do bikini, toned figure or figure. And that's 3 levels before you even get to being a bodybuilder. So it's far more accessible. And I think as well now, it is super popular. Everyone wants to be, if you like the fitness industry now, since I first started, has just exploded so much. And I think far more people want to do it because it is, it's cool. Everyone wants to do fitness. And especially now with the likes of Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, everyone wants to look a certain way, which, you know, maybe backtracking to body dysmorphia and things like that, and people wanting to look a certain way and portray themselves in a certain light, that probably crosses over in a certain aspect. But yeah, most people, they want to be fit and healthy in whatever way it is because everyone wants to look great on the gram.
That is a very good point. Yeah, do you know, that's 100% true. It is. We've all got that. You know,
we're all guilty of it, you know, like trying to take a better angle or changing the lighting a little bit to make ourselves. We're all victims of it.
Yeah, 100%, and it's just been fed with that. But yeah, the fitness industry, you're right, it has exploded. Especially, I think I remember when I used to try to go to the gym when I was in like 6th form. I went like to a gym in Bradford, Forge Gym, shout out to Forge Gym, fucking shithole. But there's some big guys in there. It's like a proper
like
horrible cold ass gym, so it's like a bit kind of motivational as well.
Yeah.
And you couldn't learn, like you'd learn from the guy in the gym. So like, who's the biggest guy?
Yeah.
All right, whatever he's doing.
He's eating
right.
How many chicken breasts and egg whites a day? We'll eat that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now that the internet's just made it so much more
accessible. Like you if you want to go and find something out now about fitness, all you got to do is jump on YouTube or Google it, and you know the answer's there. So it's far more attainable than trying to ask, you know, Joe Blogs. Bodybuilder Bob at the gym.
Yeah, what are you eating? What protein shake do you have?
Yeah, what are you benching? So it's far, you can get all the information you need now, so which is why it's probably far more popular as well.
Yeah. So you found like the biggest niche ever of like female posing coach.
Yeah.
Pro, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's not just female, is it?
Yeah. So
okay.
yeah, a coach. Obviously, I'm a female and I'm a posing coach, but I do work with males, females, bikini girls, physique guys, bodybuilders, female bodybuilders, everything. I cover all bases because, like I was saying before, all it is to me, it's like, say, for example, you're a dancer and one day you're doing a ballet show, the next day you're doing a jazz show. To me, it's just switching styles and knowing what each client needs and wants for that category. So yeah, cover. And I naturally did that over the years of just working with different people. I never said if someone would contact me, I'm a men's physique competitor. Do you know how to teach it? No. But yeah, I'll give it a go. And back then I could, because I was charging something like 30 quid an hour, so I could afford to go, okay, and I can figure it out, because that's, as a dancer, what you do. When I was teaching, you teach in the moment. Like, I'm not planning a class when I'm on, 5 days prior to the class. I'm rocking up to class and I'm teaching it there on the spot. And that was a skill. So I was able to apply that to teaching or learning, posing in different categories. So over the years, just worked with different athletes, bodybuilders, men's physique, whatever was coming in that day. I had to go, right, okay, let me just step up and figure out what the hell I'm doing here. And sometimes, most of the time, be honest, like, I don't have heaps of experience in this category, but I definitely know how to make you look better, because I understand the lines and the angles and activating different body parts, and how to create the illusion of maybe the shoulders looking bigger and thicker and the waist looking smaller. Once you know it in one category, generally it's the same across the board with how you need to manipulate a bodybuilder and a bikini girl. You're still trying to create the same angles, but just sometimes the activation or the pose might be a little bit different, but the overall X-frame, we call it, is the same.
Something I wanted to kind of rewind to. So you've mentioned, obviously a lot of our listeners are probably not bodybuilders, and that might go over their heads. But the skill of, like you say, being able to rock up to a class and teach in the moment, right there and then, that in itself is a big skill. And I think a lot of people could probably benefit from adding a bit of that to their life, because I know myself, a lot of people that can't do anything unless they've got a scheduled plan. At 9 o'clock I'm gonna be there, 10 I'm gonna be there. So how have you kind of developed that of being able to turn up in a room of 15 people or however many people and just kind of trust things are going to be okay?
I think, I think initially when you start anything, there's got to be a level of preparation that goes into it. I mean, probably when I first started teaching, I was thinking about my warm-up, I was thinking about the routine, or definitely pre-choreographing the routine. But as I did that more and more, I wasn't under pressure to know exactly what I was doing, because I already knew what I was doing, if that makes sense. So I think obviously initially in the beginning you've got to plan and prepare, but the more confident you get at something, the less you have to really plan. I think, say for example, you were a motivational speaker. Initially you're going to plan it, you're going to write down your cards for that first speech, but the more you do them, that you don't need to. You can just go in and do it off the cuff, because it's something that you do on a regular basis. And if you're passionate about it, I think sometimes you don't need to plan. I did one speech on stage where it was really about a champion mindset. And I was on the phone to Rob Latty the night before, like, oh my God, how do I plan this? Am I going to fail? And it's like, you're going to be fine. Just think about what you want to say and where you want to go with it. And I wrote notes, but then because it's something that I am passionate about and it all interlinks with what I do, I was able to just roll with it. So I think as well, if you are passionate about something, then it does come a little bit more naturally as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you know, as you're telling your story, I didn't know all the earlier bits, dancing, all that stuff. And obviously, nowadays, not nowadays, but I say generally, people more and more, they want to have everything earlier and earlier. Like, oh, I want to buy that house, I want to have that car, I want to have that life. I want to make it, I want $1 million in my bank. And in real life, it doesn't really work like that. You are hitting a lottery if you make it in your 20s, probably, right? 100%. And you're like a perfect example of kind of following what you do. Not go with the flow, but go with where maybe what your gut tells you to do or your heart tells you to do. Follow your passion in a way. Yeah. And you've kind of pieced this life together now where all these little steps, all of them
They've led
have
to
compounded
this.
into like this moment and the business that you have now.
Exactly.
And it's pretty crazy to think.
Yeah, I'm really pleased you brought that up because I haven't been in this position. It didn't just happen. Like, I'm at 34 years old and I'm only just making it in life to where I want to be. I danced professionally since I was like 18 till I was 27. I don't have money. I still don't own a house. But that's because it's not one of it's not one of my goals. Doesn't bother me. I'd rather be successful and put my money into business. I can buy a house anytime. 34 years old. Don't need one right now. But, you know, whilst I was dancing, traveling the world dancing, I had amazing life experiences. But up until I was 30, I lived in a shared house. I didn't learn to drive until I was 30. And when I did drive, I drove around in a Peugeot 206 that was probably about 10 years old and run it into the ground. You know, I didn't always drive the nice car that I've got. I didn't always be able to have the money to go and do the nice things that I wanted to do. But I always I always knew I would eventually get there. And I just had to let the dancing dream live out. I got a lot from it. I learned a lot about myself, a lot of life skills. And then everything that I did from that was always on my own merit. Like, nothing's been handed to me. Like, my parents didn't send me away with a big chunk of money, or, you know, nothing was given. I've had to work hard for what I have, and it's taken time. Like, 34 years old, you know, like, things do not happen overnight. And I think that's something as well, maybe a negative to social media. It's so easy to look at these influencers or people that are making millions overnight. It's not real. That's 99% of us do not live that life. Do you know what I mean? Like, you got to work hard, and if you want to be successful, you have to make sacrifices. And I've made them, and I'm still making them, and I will continue to make them to get to where I want to be.
Exactly. Do you know what? That's it. That's kind of the dark side of social media. Is that? Oh, it's not. Do you know what? It's not the dark side.
It's not.
You're not getting sold anything. You're not fucking buying. Like, you're not seeing that and just saying, "Oh, I'm gonna take that picture for face value. I'm gonna take that one. That guy sat on that Audi R8, and he was like, "Oh, I want that. That's whatever that is. I want it. I want in. So I'm gonna do that." And it's, you don't see all the years behind it.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, that person sat on the nice car or making it rain with their dollar bills. Usually they ain't got that money. They don't own that car. Usually it's all crap anyway. So I think people need to just do not get sucked into what you see on your newsfeed, or change your newsfeed. Unfollow those people. You know, follow people that motivate you, inspire you, want you to be better. They lift you up. Like, I don't see anything on my newsfeed that makes me feel negative about myself, that makes me feel like I'm not good enough, because it's really important what you soak up every day. So I think if you don't like what you see in your newsfeed, or it doesn't make you happy, unfollow.
Exactly. Do you know what? That's a perfect point.
No, I agree with you that, I mean, and I think people as well need to be careful of what they let into the brain, what they're consuming. And one thing I want to touch on as well. So you've mentioned you saw Rob, and you've been working with Rob.
Yes.
So Rob's a mindset coach.
Yes.
And it's something that me and James always talk about in the UK. You don't really hear about people going to see like a shrink or someone to even speak to their thoughts. You know, most lads, I would probably say, don't truly tell their best friends what's really on their mind.
Yeah.
So what made you want to see someone and talk to them about that, and did it help?
So another little layer to my story. Me and Rob were friends prior to working together as a performance coach, mindset coach, and he used to talk to me about the brain and the mind and how powerful it could be, and I was kind of a little bit dismissive, like, oh yeah, whatever, Rob. But I was prepping for a show in Brazil, and it was a world championship, and I knew I had to bring something. I had to go there with a really strong mindset. I had to bring my best. So I kind of just started like listening to what Rob was saying a little bit more, and and I really started to understand it, how powerful the brain can be if you really control what goes in there and how you talk to yourself. I really started to just switch how I approach my prep. I was going in there with a mindset of, I'm bringing my best, and if you lot want to join me, you better be good. And something switched, and then off the back of that, I started just spending more time with him. We'd pop down to Starbucks for a coffee, and Rob, once he gets into it, you can just pull so much out of him, and there's so much to gain from what he talks about and what he is passionate about. So I then just, what happened? I was in a violent relationship, and Rob really coached me out of it. And it was a dark time. It ended up, with a prison sentence. It was not a good time of my life, but Rob really helped me through that. And again, that was a dark time. So he helped me when I was up here, but he also helped really navigate my mindset and how to work through a really difficult situation, which was over a long period of time. So I've digressed. I don't remember the question.
It's kind of like why you worked with Rob, really.
So yeah, so it was
mindset.
Yeah, so it was many levels. So it was fitness related initially, and then it was then more personal related, and then from that point, obviously, like, you create a bond with someone like that, and we always got on really well anyway, just as mates. But we and naturally then just navigated towards him. Okay, I've got a business decision to make. Rob, what do I do? Okay, Rob, I need to make a decision on this. Right, okay, it was almost like my like a mentor as well. And as I've grown, Rob's grown as well, and we kind of like grew together a little bit, but especially on like the business front as well. And so we've worked together performance-wise, mindset-wise, and business as well. So we've kind of covered all bases, which is why I'm just such a huge supporter and fan. Is obviously is one of my greatest friends, but what he does is just so powerful and can really change lives.
Yeah, and exactly to Julian's point, like why do you think at the moment people like Rob is obviously very successful and very busy, but there's not a lot of people doing that role.
Yeah,
like,
I think
in this country,
to be honest, I think there's a lot of people trying to do that role. I think there's a younger generation calling themselves life coaches, because I think everyone with social media, I think people think certain job roles will create success. Entrepreneur, life coach, those types of roles, people want them because they seem like they bring the glory life. So I do actually think that there is more probably now in the UK, but is there great ones? No. Is it like you were saying in America? Obviously, you can go to a shrink. Everyone's got a shrink in America, but we just don't have that over here. Is that a cultural thing? Are the British a little bit more tight-lipped, and we don't like to talk to someone about our problems, especially as males? But I do think, again, with social media and people using their voices and not being scared to be open and show vulnerabilities, that these discussions, especially for men, are happening more. I see it more, and I think that on all aspects, the British are probably getting a little bit better at being open and not being uncomfortable talking to someone. But I mean, a lot of people don't like to still as well.
Yeah, I think you see more and more on social media that people understand the just looking after themselves, but not physically, but also mentally a little bit more.
Definitely the younger generation.
Yes, and that's what I mean. Like that new generation that's coming through, because they're already being fed and watered. Stuff that maybe we weren't exposed to when we were younger, about how important the mind and the brain and how you can really cultivate that. Now that younger generation, they've got all of that at their fingertips. Like, they're so lucky almost, so hopefully we should grow up in a much more positive world.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd like to think so.
We'd like
Well,
to
you
think so.
yeah.
You
Well, with a
would
lot of the
think
stuff
so.
when we think about it, though, like you see the kind of the dark side of social media, but with like even fitness, there's so many useful videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, you want to rehab your ankle or whatever it is, you can just type it in. You know, you got thousands of hits.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So
So I think it probably is a bit of a double-edged sword, because you do know that obviously, you know, especially girls when they're in those teenage years and they're looking at those. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was a mess. You know, I had a big fringe, the makeup was terrible, probably what I was wearing was terrible. But now you look at that younger generation and they all look like a Kardashian.
Yeah.
You know, but they're also all comparing themselves to that, which is also scary, because it's like, are we going to have a new generation of young females that all want plastic surgery to change how they look?
Yeah, that's it. Because
There's many different
that's like the
edges.
other side of
There's
it,
a
yeah.
lot,
Do you know what?
a lot.
You 100%. And I follow. I don't follow many fitness people on Instagram, but I do follow a guy called TM Cycles. I don't know if you heard of him. And he was big on like steroid education. But,
Okay.
but the way that he talks about stuff is quite funny. But it came out the other day that Selfridges, it's kind of on the same topic. Selfridges are going to do rental clothes, so you could rent a fucking Dior
like
top
a
for a
Fendi
night
jacket,
for a
yeah.
night out for a few
Yeah.
pics, and I was
But
like,
this
is that
is
the
what I
way?
mean.
Is that the
That's-
world we're living in?
Yeah, because the people want to
Really?
live that
Mate.
champagne life, don't they? They want to be seen to. People will go broke trying to buy like a good car, a good pair of trainers. Have they got a pot to piss in?
No.
No. Do you know what I mean? But that again, it's another negative of social media. But I'm sure somewhere else there's a positive somewhere. But yeah, it's we can become a little bit warped into what's reality and what's not, and you know how to be successful. Are you going to be successful buying that expensive car that you really can't afford, and do you really need those Gucci trainers that you probably have saved up for and you can't afford? It's one thing that Gary Vee says a lot, who I listen to religiously, and he always says, "Don't spend your money on dumb shit."
yeah, it's true, right?
Like, do you really need the trainers? I mean, I'm partial to a nice handbag and things like that, but it's different. I mean, I'm not still trying to plow everything into a business or being successful. And I think, you know, if you're trying to make it in something, you just got to keep it base level,
Yeah,
ground level.
Yeah, do you know what? I agree with that. Like it's just, I don't know, having like some common sense. You need to invest in yourself. What do? Do you spend 300 quid on a belt? Or do you spend 300 quid and start the podcast that you've been wanting to start forever? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing, isn't it? So it's just
Exactly.
making the right choices.
yeah. And I think it's more to your point, and it links to your story. Really, is that it is important to have a purpose more than anything, because if you think a pair of trainers will make you fucking happy, trust me, you'll buy it and you'll buy another fucking pair.
Yeah.
And that second pair will make you happy, and you'll find out
Yeah.
quick. But if you have like something like you've always been working towards something, or you had a goal, you had a purpose to, you know, you had something to align yourself with. That's going to give you much more
fulfillment,
exactly.
isn't it? You know, so what's your end goal? What do you really want? You know, if you don't buy those trainers, might you get that end goal a little bit quicker? That's what you got to think.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. Over the time, probably did spend some money on some dumb shit across the years.
We all have.
I definitely did.
Definitely
We all
done
have.
it. You know,
100%.
definitely went on some holidays that I couldn't afford, and I did it. I've lived it, but I think that's why I've lived it. So I can, if I was to give advice to my younger self, is don't spend money on dumb shit. That would be it, because I probably might have got where I wanted to be just that little bit quicker.
Yeah. And you know what? Anyone listening, you're probably going to have to buy some dumb shit and realize for yourself.
Just to yeah,
Because
just to go, yeah,
Well, experience is the
exactly.
best way. To
Or
learn,
just
isn't it?
don't buy that expensive piece of dumb shit. Maybe go like middle ground.
yeah.
Don't spend 300. Spend 150.
Yeah, do that.
That's it. Spend what your wallet can let you spend.
Exactly. And do you know what? Another piece of advice to my younger self: save. Because I didn't have any savings until I got to about 30 years old. And I wasn't making enough money to save. If I'd done that when I was younger, I probably again would have got to where I wanted to be a lot quicker. But it was literally dancers' life is like paycheck to paycheck. But you know, I got experiences and it gave me the skills that I've got now in order to have the business that I've got.
Exactly. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah,
It's all
for
part
sure.
of the journey. Do you want to talk to us a bit about your charity work?
Yes. So I founded a charity beginning of last year called Female Force. The purpose for that charity is from my own backstory. I was in a domestic violent relationship, emotionally, physically, and it was a very dark, scary time. Never been in a violent relationship before, and I came out the other side of it, and I always knew I wanted to do something to give back or help other females. How can I use my own experience to help someone else to hopefully not be in that situation, or help someone get out of that situation, shine some light on it, and raise awareness. I had no clue what myself personally was getting into. I'd never been in a violent relationship. I'd never been in an emotionally abusive relationship. I was like blindsided. So I didn't have a clue about it, and it's one of the reasons why Rob played such a huge part, because he was saying to me, "This is not normal. This behaviour is not normal. It shouldn't be happening." And my sole purpose with the charity is to raise awareness, to teach females self-defense, and to just again shed some light on it, shine a light on it, have like a really strong social media presence where females can get information on if they are in a violent relationship, if they're trying to get out, if they're unsure if they are, what are the warning signs, what are the red flags. There's so many layers to it, and that's really the goal and the purpose of the charity. I held an event just before lockdown happened, so off the back of lockdown, things kind of got a little bit stuck, couldn't really progress forward with it too much, but we had the first event, which was super successful. I had a group of 30 females there. We talked about the red flags, the warning signs. There's even things like partners controlling your finances. That's a level of abuse, you know. Partners controlling who you spend time with, what you do. It's all, you know, falls under domestic abuse. So talked about that. We had a workshop for self-defense, which just basic self-defense skills, which, you know, me and my friend had a conversation prior to the event and said, if we'd both known self-defense, would we maybe have been able to stop it from escalating? Might we have got out sooner? Might, you know, those moments where you're getting physically abused, might it have not been as bad? So that's a huge part of it. Off the back of that, I am applying for funding to hopefully roll out more events, initially in Yorkshire. Once we get some funding, I also want to run like an 8-week course for females that are coming out of violent relationships, just to build on their self-worth, their belief, and just working mainly with the self-defense to really help do that as well. So yeah, that's the end goal. So something obviously that is super, super close to my heart. And I just believe that I have such a great platform on social media. When I did start talking about my own personal experience, the response that I got back from it was both overwhelming and scary. The first time I spoke about it through my own personal profile, I had messages from women saying they were in violent relationships. How did they get out? They thought, actually reading this, I actually realised maybe I'm in a mentally abusive relationship. It was heartbreaking, and I just thought, I cannot just speak and tell my story, although it is great because it opens doors and it makes other females realise they're not alone. But I have to do something. I have to use my platform to help other females, because not everyone has the confidence to speak up. Not everyone wants to. I was nervous about being vulnerable. I remember the first time I spoke about it, again, Rob Latty, Rob, do you think this is all right? I'm really nervous about putting this out. What if people look at me differently? What if people, you know, think I'm doing it for attention? because there is a stigma attached to it. And a lot of people said to me when I did say, oh, I've been in a physically violent relationship, but you're really strong. Or what did you do? What did you do to end up getting hit? Or, so there's so many stigmas and things that are just wrong in society, how people view that. I just thought, no, I need to speak up and be a voice for the females. So
no, that's amazing. Do you know what? Just to rewind to kind of the start of this. So, do you know when you were in that abusive relationship? Did you know at the time something was wrong? Do you know was there years that went by that you just took it and thought it was normal?
Yeah. So when I look back now, heaps of red flags. So many narcissistic tendencies, being a sociopath. There was just in the beginning, it was just everything. Now, when you are in a relationship with a narcissist, they move very quick. They love bomb you. You feel overwhelmed. It's like everything you've ever been waiting for is there at your doorstep, and oh my God, they picked me. But then at the same time, they pull the rug from under your feet, and it's like the opposite. You're the worst person ever, and no one else wants you. No one else would ever have you. And then over time, what happened is I allowed boundaries to be crossed. And, the first time I was physically abused, it was like I was just hit across the face. But then I allowed it back in because what they do is they're very manipulative. They get into your head, and you almost become slightly dependent on that relationship because they pull your self-worth down so much. You think that, oh, but this person really loves me and they only did it because of this, or I made them mad, I deserve that. But for me, initially, when the first time it happened, I knew straight away this is not right. But and I walked away. I got out. But then what I wasn't prepared for was the mental manipulation after that, which is where they suck you back in, and it's very hard to break away because they literally take control of your feelings. And if you've not been in it before, they tell you everything I want to hear. I'll get help. I'll go for counselling. I'll be a better person. This has never happened before. And obviously, if you're in love with that person, you believe it, which I did. But then there was a second time. Then there was a third time, and every time it happened, the intensity of the abuse escalated. So by the third time, it was so wrong. The level that it went to had to go to the police, and that was the only way I was able to get out. And then after that, there was a court case and conviction at the end of 10 years. So yeah, it was a dark time, a really, really dark time. But I have come out the other side, and if I can help other people not go through what I had to experience in some way, then it doesn't make it worth it. But it helps. It's always a sense of healing for myself, probably as well. So yeah.
No, I think this is something that you probably talk about on in your charity, and I've also heard it on your podcast that you've got.
Yeah.
But you and Rob Latty talked about something really interesting, which was, some red flags that you can see, for example, if you're on a first date or whatever, from people. So can we go over some of those and find out what they are?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first of all, first date, it's you got to listen to the language that someone else uses. I think first date is pretty hard because it's like you just meet the surface of someone. You got to get past the mask. I would personally say look out for things like control, and control could be who they tell you to spend time with. If they're checking up on you all of the time, where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? If they react unreasonably in certain situations, if their personality or their mood changes a lot, and you feel like you you don't know what you're going to get, or you're walking on eggshells. Also not normal. No one should make you feel less worthy. You know, you don't let anyone belittle you. If someone starts to belittle you, the language that they speak to you with, also wrong. So yeah, I'd probably say like red flags. Usually as well, trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, generally it's not right. And if you are unsure, then there's so much information out there now. If you are unsure, and there's even things now where you can check. You can actually, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it might be called Sarah's Law, where you can actually go and check if someone's got a criminal record when it comes to DV. So, but again, that's even hard because you could question them on it, and I did with my partner at the time, and he was like, "Well, it's her fault. It was all her." So yeah, just be aware, know your worth. Don't let anyone treat you in any way that you wouldn't treat someone else.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is amazing, and like using your platform for something super positive is brilliant.
Thank you. I just think it's important. Like, no female or male should be ever treated like that. It's just not acceptable. So if we can just help to raise the awareness and people to know what is right and wrong behaviour, then hopefully it'll just, if it helps one person not end up down that road, because, you know, some people, they end up far worse off, you know, like I've seen stories where females, they're killed and murdered by their partners. It's scary, and it goes on a lot, and especially, you know, with COVID. God, one thing that I've thought the whole way through is, those females or males that are in those violent relationships that are stuck, terrifies me.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, but yeah, the goal, just raise more awareness, and I have a website being built at the moment which will give people a channel or a route of where they need to go to get the help that they need, because obviously I can't give all of that help and support, but if I can help use my platform to navigate people there, then they will hopefully find the kind of support that they need.
Nice.
Perfect.
You and Rob also run a podcast.
We do.
And you give out some amazing tips on that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you guys do on that?
Yes. So we've got a podcast called Success, Lifestyle and Laughter. We've completed our first series. We talk about everything. Obviously Rob's massive on the mindset, so we go into a lot of stuff on that. We talk about business, we talk about relationships, we talk about health, mental well-being. It's just I think it's easy listening with a few good golden nuggets in there. And me and Rob, you know, we obviously both like to talk. So there's never any awkward silences at all.
Nice.
No, that's true.
And if people want to find you, Emma, they want to follow you, they want to get in touch for your services, where can they go?
So several places to find me. So social media, you can find me on Instagram at Emma Hyndman _ the Posing Pro. If you want to know more about Female Force, it's just at Female Force 1. I also have a gym. If you want to go to the gym in Bradford, which is called Strength Pro, you can find that also on social media. And then I also have a website if you want to know more about posing, which is www.theposingpro.com.
And I don't know if you mentioned anything there on Female Force. If people,
I did.
You did.
Yes.
Boom. Smashed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And it has for us as well.
Thank you. Long overdue, actually.
Yes, massively overdue.
Nice one.